Good evening, workshoppers. It's a new week and a new episode as we go and continue to keep the stream streak alive. We've had a lot to talk about in terms of the Diablo these past couple of weeks. Hence why I've been having so many new episodes and such. And I wanted to kind of cap this off with some of my thoughts on where the franchise, or specifically Diablo 3, is sitting at this point in time, because we've had a lot, over the last couple of seasons where we've had some really big changes, especially for something that would, be considered in maintenance mode. A much smaller, kind of like a shrunk skeleton crew as far as the development team goes, but an extremely passionate and motivated development team that wants to go through and continue to make Diablo 3, kind of like the best experience that it can be. And this comes along. I wasn't originally I didn't have this planned or anything to go and coincide with it, but as it's a Westmarch Wednesday, so we obviously have some official news posting to go and talk about. I wanted to just kind of hit on this one real quick. As we talked about in the last episode with Dread Scythe, there's some wonkiness that's kind of going on with the seasonal theme for season 21, and they're working on it. And so today there was a hot fix that was applied to go and change some of the larger issues with the game. And the big ones that they're going and focusing on are the accessibility issues, things such as the lightning flashes, the horn, the noise that blares whenever the seasonal theme starts, addressing some of the functionality problems such as pets not generating stacks of the seasonal theme I was talking about, and some of the issues that I've had with, it's great that we've got this awesome new set for the necromancers, but unfortunately, because it uses pets, it was getting a lackluster benefit from the seasonal theme itself, because those kills from the simulacrums weren't counting, as well as some kind of the more exploitier changes that they went through and are addressing. It does affect more so the solo mechanics than it is some of the group mechanics that they have going on, where you can't trigger a seasonal theme in the outside of the Greater Rift and then teleport back in to the Greater Rift in order to get it. You're looking specifically for meteors or the lightning blast or something along those lines. You get a good one with all the mobs that are already kind of like grouped up in the rift, and then you teleport back in, blow them all up, with that preferred seasonal theme, and then go and continue on your way as you've just got a huge amount of progress. And I'll speak to that one more in a little bit, because there is some still issues that's going on with the seasonal theme and such, but I just wanted to kind of dig a little bit deeper into just what Diablo 3 has to look forward to at this point in time. And I think the term maintenance mode we can pretty much go and put to rest, because the dev team has gone through and has fully shown that this game isn't really in maintenance mode. Well, obviously, GGG has a much larger staff that's dedicated in going to updating Path of Exile while they continue to work on PoE 2. The Diablo 3 team is definitely making do with the resources that they have, and I would actually want to wager to say that it's probably a bit bigger than what a lot of people would expect. We don't officially know what the numbers for the Diablo seasons are. We don't see their player base. You can go and look at you can look at Steam and see how Path of Exile is doing and such. But I would not be surprised if Diablo 3 is far more popular in certain orders of magnitudes than other ARPGs, just on the basis that they've sold far more copies than any of the other rivals that would be out there. That people always tend to go through and discount that by a lot, and you're talking that if only 1 out of 1,000 people that purchase the game are still playing it, it would still be larger. than most of the rivals out there. It would mirror what the average like kind of like peak day-to-day activity for Path of Exile is on a regular basis, and so that's just the number of people that are going through and playing it. And what I would actually use to like back up this theory that I've been having in the back of my head, and but not really having any proof to go through and show it, is something that simply has happened recently. And we had a new job posting specifically for Diablo 3. And so they're now hiring a senior technical artist characters with a main job of going in and working with rigging and things of that nature. It's not so much a character artist, but more specifically a technical artist to go and work on character models. So that way, if they're going through and introducing new art assets, or if they want to go and edit a skeleton or some form like that. And by skeleton I mean the actual character skeleton within the game itself. That they now have that ability to do so, because as far as that we know is that whenever they want to do new art assets for a season, such as the new the new sets that they've introduced for all the classes, they have to get someone else on a different team in order to make those assets. They don't have an artist on the D3 team, and so they have to petition either someone that is working on a different project within classic games, or maybe even petitioning someone in Team 3 that's now working on Diablo 4 that would still be familiar with the tool sets and such to go and make these items. And there's obviously, they've shown something on their side, at Blizzard, that there's enough interest that they're still generating enough a large enough player base and potentially enough sales to go through and say, hey, look, we've got some metrics that can go through and prove that our team should increase. We need an in-team artist that can go and work on these projects, because everything that it is now, and this is something that's like really big in this particular seasonal theme, is a lot of reused assets. The lightning from Diablo, or the meteors from Belial and such, that they're all going through and getting reused. But if they have someone that can actually go through and tweak a character model, can design a new class set, or create new skins for a monster or something along those lines, then there's a lot more that they can do. And I think that that's a great sign, not just of how many people are continuing to go through and play the game, because you can't go off of Twitch numbers and you can't go off of subreddit activity, because if you go through and say that, then there's some really super popular games out there that that they're popular and tons of people are playing them, that are below like their competitors, when you actually do have like some of those metrics that are out there. And that doesn't really you can use that as an argument of how popular it might be, but just because people aren't watching it doesn't mean that people aren't playing it. And with them expanding the team, that means that there is obviously some good that's happening within the realm of Diablo 3 that would warrant them adding that second person, or that third person on the new artist. And I think that also is an indicator of what they want to do going forward. We now have all of these class sets that are created and are out there. So what comes next? We've had a lot of fun. The majority of the new sets that they've introduced for the classes have been fun. They've been shaking up the meta, changing how the game is played. And when you go through and you look at it, there's also some changes that they've made that have made some old sets, such as like the Barbarian, in particular, kind of rise to the top with just a couple of little tweaks here and there. And that's my thoughts on what is going to be going on with the game moving forward. That you'll actually have, now that we have all these new sets out there, that they're going to go back and start addressing or tweaking some of the numbers for some of the underperforming sets. Like this particular season with the Narius set starting for the Necromancers, it's not bad. It's kind of like a good set to get you started, get your feet wet, get into straight into Torment 6 or what have you, and you can play almost anything with it. So it's depending upon what supplementary or auxiliary legendaries that you get, you can kind of work into anything. You don't have to feel pigeonholed into one particular style. But imagine, like, when the seasonal opener swings back to Tragols. That's gonna be difficult. That one is not gonna be a happy season. If you're going through and wanting to start necromancers, because that set has dropped off considerably in terms of power, just the same as Inarius has. Pestilence is still, up there and competitive, just because of the volume of attacks, that even though its damage modifiers, aren't quite that high, that one will be a difficult one to balance, I'm sure, just because, it doesn't have as high of a multiplier of a lot of other class sets do, but it's throwing literally hundreds of attacks at a time, at any particular target, so it kind of makes up for it, quantity over quality. And there's other class sets, Marauders, outside of the M4 N4, hasn't really seen the light of day in forever. There's a lot of class sets out there that could use some love. And I'm hoping that the devs, now that they've done a new round of class sets, can go back and start doing a round of balance changes, for some of these old ones. I would love to see some more supplementary legendaries created to help prop up or support some of those builds, or even just it would be like this time last year when we had the newly developed crafting sets, the Ogchilds, the Captain Crimsons and things of that nature, that really helped like shake up the game, shake up the meta, and give people a lot of opportunity to change things around, play with different builds, and open up how they wanted to go through and build their sets. It kept the Ring of Royal Grandeur relevant and things of that nature. And so there's a lot of things that they can go through and do. There are still some sets that they could potentially look at adding some tweaks here and there, to make some changes. There's a lot of different things that they can do, with the game, with how many legendaries there are that still don't have powers, or if they want to better define, some of the sets to push them more one way than another. Now, I play a lot of Necromancer, so my examples are going to be more Necromancer based, and for that, I'm sorry, but you can easily do a buff to Tragols without actually buffing the set, by adding in like a supplementary bracer, which there are no real Necromancer bracers, that specifically increases the damage of like blood mages or something along those lines, or gives you a damage increase when you use a blood spell, or something along those lines. There's things that you can do, or you gain a damage reduction increase equal to a certain percentage of the health that you've spent in the last 10 seconds. For when you're using those blood spells. So there's things that can be done to help supplement those classes or those sets that don't see quite as much play, and that is what a lot of this free development time, I imagine, is going to be devoted to, since they're not spending a lot of their time. It's like every 3 months you've got a small team that's having to come up with and develop and implement an interesting seasonal theme, as well as creating like a couple new class sets, going back and balancing some outliers such as Valor Crusaders or Mundanugus and such, and then maybe add in like a couple supplementary legendaries to prop up these new builds that they're creating, or even just something simple like adding impale damage to Holy Point Shot to try and bring Shadows and Pale up there a little bit. That there's plenty more that they can do for that, and then going through and getting a technical artist that could go and handle things, such as the unique effects for the seasonal theme, handle those mechanics and that side of it, leaving the other devs more time to focus more on itemization changes and things of that nature. So it actually is a pretty big thing of just adding like this one additional job of how much freedom that it's going to give the developers, just in the terms of things that they can do that doesn't require taking an asset that already exists within the game, so they can be a bit more ambitious, and as well as just freeing up the time that now the developers aren't having to also go back in and rig the special effects and things themselves, that they'll have someone else dedicated on the team specifically for that. And I feel that this is just even more kind of proof that they are going to get more ambitious with the seasonal themes, and that's what it kind of comes back to with the season 21. That this is a more kind of like fleshed out season 19. Obviously, it's still fraught with its own issues that we see in today's hot fix and some stuff still going forward. But it definitely was one of those ones where it's like season 19 definitely fell a little bit flat, especially with the more hardcore lowercase h community that they kind of got bored with it, and it created some interesting play mechanics, but it also created some uninteresting play mechanics that led to kind of unfun gameplay and things of that nature, and exploits and other things. And that this seasonal bonus, because it's actually it's still tied to how many kills that you get, but it's not an ever expanding thing. You can't just group a whole bunch of enemies, get 5 kills, turn that into 15, turn that into 50, turn that into 250, turn that into 500, now kill a Rift Guardian. You have to kind of stagger it out over time. But you can also still try and make a push for get one seasonal theme to kill off like the last 30-40% of the Rift. Take that huge kill streak, just wait a minute and a half for the Rift Guardian to spawn, and then hope to RNG that you have a good one, get the crotch lasers, and then all of a sudden burn down the Rift Guardian in no time. But the hot fix that they did today is definitely a step in the right direction. That they're continuing to want to perfect what it is that they're doing. And they also have mentioned, that wasn't the only thing that we had gotten, because there are some kind of exploitive game mechanics that aren't yet addressed in this particular hotfix. There was a post that they were going through and talking about some of the exploits that haven't been fixed yet. But Pez Radar wanted to go through and jump in that there is an additional hotfix that's going to be coming to address some of these items. So there are some things they're going to continue to do, and we had a little bit more clarification on that one. Is that from the design team, the seasonal buff being passed around in groups is working as intended. So if one person gets a kill, that kill will be added on to the seasonal buff of other people in the party. That's intended. But the idea of people grabbing stacks outside of a greater rift and then bringing them into the greater rift is not. So they're making that one clear, that even though you can still do it in today's hotfix doesn't address that particular mechanic, that they will be addressing that in a future hotfix. So that is something that they are going to change. So if you're currently in one of those groups that's going in, sitting out there and just jumping into Fields of Misery or something like that, getting a huge 400 kill streak, and then jumping back into the Rift before the seasonal buff triggers, that is going to go away. Your clears are probably going to get cleared, and if you are really going through and pushing it in a way that that you shouldn't, that might institute a ban. Because that's something that we saw in previous seasons. That's something that we've seen, from all the way back years ago to the Blood Goblin exploit and such. It's like, if just because they haven't fixed it doesn't mean they're not going to ban you for it. So they've gone out there and they've done something that they don't normally do, and they've said, yeah, we're gonna fix this, don't do it, type thing. So that the onus is now on those people that are going to use, you continue to use that mechanic. Those 150 clears that we have, or like the solo 150 clears of a support build, that are not going to stick. How long is it going to take? No idea. Something like this particular, we're a week and a half in, and we got this hot fix for the accessibility issues, which in my opinion is much more important. Sure, everyone would like to go through and fix the exploits that people are using in order to cheat the leaderboards, but some of the accessibility issues, such as the screen flashing, the loud noises and such, is actually affecting like a lot of people's ability to even play the game, period. And I think that they're addressing it in the right order. They're making it so that way, people that have, audio-visual issues, can't play the game in what its state was prior to today's hotfix. And hopefully that the changes that they implemented will help alleviate some of those issues and make the game more inviting as it was in the past, and then go back and address some of these exploits later. Even if it takes even if it takes that we have the next hot fix out by the end of the week, that it won't really take all that much time. I imagine that it probably will be, just given we don't know how the back end of it is created, but having it actually clear when going into the Greater Rift might involve a bit more mechanical issues that they have to work on. But they definitely address, I think, the larger issue first, because you can always clear the leaderboards. It might impact some people's enjoyment that, oh, I'm trying to go through and push to the top, and there's some stupid 150 clears that I'll never compete with. And that might kind of like kill some of your motivation and drive. But hopefully, now knowing that they are going to address it, and it's something that they've done in the past, where even if they might not necessarily instituted a ban for some of the people that have used, like especially like in the season 19 clears, where they were getting the kills outside of the rift and bringing them back in, very oddly similar issues that they might not, everybody that exploited it might not have gotten banned for it because you only did it once or twice. It was obviously there wasn't maybe necessarily a malicious intent. Those clears got wiped. All those clears were eventually wiped. But I was also thinking about some of the big ones, such as like the Necromancer Deadringer exploit from a while ago. That one took quite a few weeks. I think that one was it was almost 3 or 4 weeks before they managed to fix that one. So it could take some time before they go through and get this one fixed. But it's a good sign that they do still have the integrity of the game, the integrity of the season, in their crosshairs, and it's something that they're committed to. Not just going in. This is the time frame where they probably would be wanting to spend a lot of time developing the next seasonal buff, but they're still having to go through and work on this one, and that's good. That's great. You do have some instances, such as Heroes of the Storm has their own type of seasonal theme. They call them anomalies. They put a lot of time and effort into the current one, which I think we talked about a little bit on the last episode, which was like weather effects and such. So it's kind of similar. There's a little bit of a zeitgeist going on over there in classic games, but they ended up this week reverting it, and they're removing the anomaly because it was creating a lot of gameplay issues. Had some performance issues that were impacting people by the weather effect itself, but also creating a lot of really unfun scenarios that certain heroes were able to exploit. The mechanic, or not really exploit, but they were able to use the mechanics to a much higher effect. Quick match, where you're not able to know what weather effect is going to be triggering when you go in, can severely negatively impact how the game itself plays out. And so they made a really hard decision of this thing that they spent a lot of time working on and pulling it, which is not an easy decision at all to do something of that nature. I don't think that the season 21 theme is bad enough that they would have to go through and do something to that nature, because you could just completely remove. There are still some visual effects tied to the seasonal theme that they could go and remove. The screen darkening or lightening. For like depending upon the weather of the stage that you're in and such. That some of that stuff can still be removed if they need to address the accessibility even further. At the end of the day, they can always address the actual damage scaling, if it is continue to be like something that it creates kind of unfun play experiences at the higher end, that they can always address the damage scaling of it, because it doesn't always have to be a linear curve of where the mechanic just continues to go at the same rate. They can address it where it has like the first couple of stacks can go up, and then it kind of like plateaus off at a certain level. In order to address it. But it's like, seeing them try to make that season 19 theme kind of work again, I think is at least, from the developer mindset, they got a lot of feedback. They learned some lessons from there, and they felt as if they still wanted to do something like this. It's like, okay, we didn't quite hit the mark, but we can do it. We can actually make it work, and so they tried again, and it's still not quite working out. I'm sure that the way that they intended it to, but there's no harm in changing, going through, changing things around and trying stuff that might not have worked before. See if you can try it and do it. And if you go and you look at Path of Exile, they have leagues that don't work. They have leagues that a lot of people will find that are unfun, or they don't appreciate the mechanics. There are dud ones, and it's going to be the same thing for Diablo 3, especially when they are going to be out there trying a whole bunch of different stuff. And I'm interested in seeing what they could do once we have that new team member added in. Though given it's Blizzard, it could be 6 months before they hire somebody, and then you have onboarding time, before they're actually like fully comfortable in their role. We're talking, it could be still like a good 3 seasons away before we see anything come of this new job posting. But it's still, I think it's still, we're still like in the beginnings of these actual big changes. It's only been like a year and a half since they've really been digging in deep with the seasonal themes instead of just double bounties or double goblins. And they're doing things that really change up how you play the game. But I expect more ambitious seasons going forward, them trying new and different things. I still would love to see if they actually tried doing some stuff with changing up how some of the core mechanics work. A season of only Blackthorns, something along those lines. It'd be cool. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of good things that are going through and heading for the game. I think that there's we still have a lot of life left in Diablo 3. Diablo 4 is still quite some ways away. We don't quite know what the release window is still going to be like for Immortal, even though they said they'd have regional testing out sometime mid-year, which is, they still got like another month and a half in order to meet that. We have an investor call on, I think it's August 4th, that we should hopefully go through and learn something more. Activision Blizzard is going to be partnered and is one of the developers to showcase some stuff over at Gamescom that we had confirmation on. We don't know if that means that they're going to be talking about any of the Diablo titles, but we should have some word on Immortal. But we don't even know if the game would launch this year still. Talking with Echo, who I've been doing some lore videos over on his channel, Echo Gaming Diablo on YouTube, that some of the big mobile developers like Supercell, Brawl Stars, one of the most popular games out there on the mobile platform, was in regional testing for 2 years. So Blizzard's first attempt at a mobile game, even though they would have liked to have launched it in 2019, going through and taking a while, it's not that weird when someone whose bread and butter is mobile gaming takes 2 years of open market testing before they can get it to a point where they're ready to launch. And this is their first time developing a mobile game. It makes sense that there's going to be some delays, and and we'll see where that goes and takes us. But until then, Diablo 3 is what we've got. They're obviously still D2, but there's not really any active development on that side. And I hope to see, some more changes, some more ambitious seasons. I'd like to see them, make some of the older sets a bit more playable. Because I really like the Mask of the Burning Carnival for the Necromancer set. It gave them a nice varied style of gameplay that's different from how the other sets functioned. And if they continue to work on those same niches, for all the classes, giving them a little bit more of a defined play style, even if it's not necessarily like the best. Like, I'm not sure if you'll really be able to get anything like on the Necro side that can compete with the two kind of top builds, Legacy of Dreams, the Corpse Explosion, or the Poison Scythe. Just with how insane that those damage scalings are. Yeah, if I'm just going to be speed running, Greater Rift 100s, for most of the season, I'm fine, being able to like switch back and forth between like a Pestilence build or, the Burning Mask build. And, if I want to try something different, making the Rathma pet set actually be able to compete with the Legacy of Dreams mage build, which they're on completely different levels. And so adding some functionality to give those sets a little bit maybe playability is a good sign. And I think and I hope that that's where the team is going to be going now that they have a full set of class sets. Said set there a lot, but a full set of sets for all the classes out now. That took 3 seasons to go through and do. Will they make new sets in the future? I'd love to see a revive set, or a revive build for Necros at some point. But I would also, love if they went through and they started readdressing, maybe if they pick a couple of sets from every classes, or if they want to address just like one class and redo all of one class sets a season, that'd be cool. But yeah. Like I was mentioning in the before the episode, this one would be a little bit on the shorter side, but it's something that I wanted to go through and get out there because we've had some interesting developments that talk about the future of where D3 is going, and I think overall it's in a pretty good state. We have devs that even when they miss the mark, like with this current season, that they're still in there. They're going through. They're developing hot fixes for it, and that I think. You have to really appreciate that there's such a small team to go and be spending weeks developing hot fixes to get the seasonal theme in a good place that's playable and fun for the player base, when they would probably rather be spending this time developing the next seasonal theme. That's a big production kind of like time and budget sink to go through and be doing things of that nature. When you have a very small, limited crew, just having those same people that would be developing the content for the next season are having to work on fixing the current season. That's a big decision. That's a big trigger to go through and pull and say no. The season is worth it. The expectations of what the player base have of being what is good and what's playable is worth continuing to go through and work on it till the seasonal theme is in a good spot before we continue to go and work on what we're doing for the next season. And I think that is more than anything very telling of the people that are entrusted to continuing the development of Diablo 3 while we wait for Diablo 4, and probably for some time after that. There's no reason that they have to shut down development or updates for D3 when Diablo 4 comes out. They still did some patches. There has still been a couple of patches for D2 to address some playability and things of that nature for it when after Diablo 3 itself had come out. So there's still some hope. There's still a lot of future. There's a lot of in the future for D3, and then like the one last thing is that I want to go through and touch on before ending the episode is there is one other job listing that's listed under D3, which is a senior software engineer for servers. But when you go into it, it specifically is StarCraft Remastered, StarCraft 2, Warcraft 3, and Heroes of the Storm. It doesn't mention Diablo, even though the job listing is for Diablo. And that just makes me think, they had promised us a while ago that they were going to want to implement stash spaces, an increased stash space, but it was going through and causing server stability issues. And that was the reason why they hadn't yet done it. And we haven't really had any word on that. I think it's been about 2 years now, on those particular promises. But we'll see on that one. We'll see on that one. I can hold out hope, but it's like because it's listed under D3, but the job doesn't itself call out for D3 that we have some more stash space. That's if you like playing a lot of classes, it can become an issue trying to save multiple gear sets. As I go through, and I actually have a barbarian this season, that I'm working on trying to gear out a little bit. But everything, like my stash is full of all of my Necro stuff, trying to figure out and play, a couple dozen different, Legacy of Dreams builds, the Burning Mask build, and like a support build and such. That there's not a lot of room to just hold pieces, for the Barbarian if I wanted to go and give him a whirl this particular season. But yeah, here's hoping. And that will kind of bring the episode to a close. I did have, and I want to go through and say that 42. Don't worry, I got your email, and I will go through and cover it. And I will be happy to do so on the next episode. But yeah, as always, I appreciate all of you that went through. We're hopping in chat here with me tonight on the Twitch page. I'll be spending some time with you guys here in the after show. If you want to catch the shows live, it's at twitch.tv/BlizzPro. I record usually every other Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. But you can always find the episodes. I upload all the videos to YouTube over on BlizzPro's channel. Just do a search for Westmarch Workshop. And, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, and all those other types of good things. If you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to email me, westmarchworkshop@blizzpro.com. You can also follow the show. It's at the WM Workshop on Twitter. You can follow me personally. I'm at 9ballgamer on Twitter. And also, while you're still listening to it, some more shameless plugging. Please feel free to go through and check out Echo Gaming on YouTube. He's been doing an amazing job going through and covering all things Diablo Immortal. He is super excited for that game, and that excitement is contagious. You watch a couple of those videos and you'll be loving it too, I promise. And if worst case scenario, he and I collaborated to go and do a lore series, which we just went through and finished up, covering kind of like the history of Diablo and where it leads up to Diablo Immortal. And hope to do some more future collaborations with him. Maybe Q&A, answer some specific questions and such. But go give that a listen. Go give that a watch. And with that, again, thank you for joining me here, and I will catch you all next time.